Good evening, you're watching the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. First, the headlines. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos issues a royal decree ratifying the state's general budget for the fiscal year 2018. The total general expenditure of the Sultanate increases by 7%, amounting to 12.5 billion Omani riyals. And Al Buraimi Industrial Estate witnesses an active economic movement, and the value of investments exceeds 200 million Omani riyals. Good evening once again, and thank you for joining us. Happy 2018. Now, the details. His Majesty Sultan Qaboos has issued Royal Decree number 1/2018, ratifies the state's general budget for the fiscal year 2018. Article 1 ratifies the state's general budget for the fiscal year 2018 as per the attached tables. Article 2, all ministries and government units should implement the provisions of the decree, each in accordance with their scope of responsibilities. Article 3, this decree shall be published in the official gazette and come into force from the 1st of January 2018. The total general expenditure was estimated at 12.5 billion Omani riyals, with an increase of 800 million riyals compared to the estimated expenditure in 2017. The budget was estimated on the basis of oil prices at $50 a barrel. The total estimated revenues for the state's general budget for 2018 amounted to 9.5 billion Omani riyals, with an increase of 3% compared to the anticipated actual revenues of the last year. The budget's deficit is estimated to reach 3 billion riyals, representing 10% of the gross domestic product. Revenues of oil and gas formed 70%, while the non-oil revenues reached around 30%, gained from revenues of applying selected tax and purchasing a number of governmental shares from companies, in addition to raise collecting rate and other revenues. We have with us in our studio Fabio Scacciavillan, Chief Strategist at Oman Investments Fund, to shed more light on the Sultanate's budget for the fiscal year 2018. Welcome, Mr. Fabio, to our news bulletin. What are the main characteristics of the State General Budget 2018?
Well, the main characteristic is that this budget is a very prudent budget. The main element is the forecast on the oil price, which is $50 per barrel. As we know, in the past several weeks, the oil price has hovered well above 60. So we think that this assumption will be considered quite conservative by most entrepreneurs and the international markets. Also, the important aspect is that in any budget, the government has to look at the trade-off between fiscal responsibility and the need not to depress the economy. And I think this budget does a good job in that sense, because it increases the expenditures, while last year the budget had decreased the expenditure. So it gives more leeway and a little bit more of impulse to the domestic economy without endangering the fiscal stability. In that sense, I think that 2018 will be a year in which we will witness a rebound in the Omani economy, thanks to this rather wise fiscal policy of the government.
And how good will be the economic situation for the countries as the spending rate has been increased?
Well, Oman is a country is an economy where public expenditures plays a dominant role. In that sense, a lot of the private sector as well depends on what the government decision turn out to be. The main issue is the breakdown between infrastructure spending and current expenditures. Now, we see that in the budget there is a lot devoted to social programs like health, education, and so on and so forth. We see also that people in the most disadvantaged sector of the society will get several millions in cash benefits, and there will be also in-kind benefits in that sense. So it will support those who have been probably have been suffered worse from the crisis that we have experienced in the past few years. Moreover, we we in the Omani economy need infrastructure spending because this is an element that will push up potential output, therefore it will push up growth, and without this increase in infrastructure, the Omani economy will suffer from several bottlenecks. Now, the expenditures on infrastructure has been always very generous, and this is good because it's a very important investment for the future of the Oman economy and its people, obviously.
In your opinion, with the current situation, do you think Oman will face difficulty in trying to borrow from the capital markets, international capital markets?
I don't think so. The capital markets have been quite generous with Oman in the past few years because they have understood that this downturn in the oil price is temporary, essentially. Oman bonds have become a significant part of the international bond indices, which most asset managers need to hold. And I've spoken with literally dozens of asset managers and fund managers who wanted to know the situation of Oman, how the fiscal the fiscal position could look like over the next few years. In general, we see that little by little the government deficit is becoming smaller. This year it's 3 billion Omani Rial, of which $500 million will be financed through the reserves that the government has accumulated in during good years, and 2.5 billion Omani Rial will be borrowed from domestic sources and international sources. During 2017, there hasn't been any major problem in financing this, this gap, and I don't foresee any problem. Even the issues that is mostly talked about in this regard, and namely the downgrade by rating agencies, is not that worrisome because those rating agencies apply models that are one size fits all. They should apply to countries like Austria, Canada, and Oman. But clearly the economy of Oman is much different from the economy of a small European economy, because there a drop of 10% in GDP would be a disaster. In Oman, since the Oman economy depends so heavily on oil, it's a normal fact that the oil price oscillates by 10%. So I would imagine that going forward, the ratings agency will have a more sophisticated approach to the Omani economy. And in that sense, I don't see any worry and I don't perceive any worry from international investors I meet during my work.
Wonderful. It looks like we're not going to have big difficulties in that way.
No, I don't think so.
Because you have already mentioned that 1 billion could be actually allocated half a billion. Okay, yeah. And the remaining that 2.5.
2.5
that
billion
could be borrowed from outside. Now we all know that oil prices are the main element actually for creating the budget here in the country. How do you see the situation actually with of the oil prices globally?
Let me first start by saying that the global economy in the second half of 2017 has been firmly on the upside. The global economy has gained momentum. The United States are growing at 3%. Even Europe, that has experienced the worst problem post-2008, is finally gaining traction. And the economy of Japan, that has been lagging for now more than 20 years and possibly even 30 years, has finally moved up. So I would say that in terms of the global picture, we see a solid rebound for the first time after the 2008-2009 crisis. Therefore, all the commodity prices have been increasing over the past few months, and oil is no exception. Going forward, what we see is that the supply of oil is dwindling because conventional oil fields are being depleted. And they're being depleted at a rate of 1 million barrel a day, while demand is increasing. People who say, well, but the shale oil production in the US will cover this gap. No, in reality, this is the supply from the shale plays, as they call them, is not sufficient. And even the president of Aramco has pointed that out in a recent interview. In other words, the increase in oil supply from the US shale fields will be in the order of 400,000 barrels per day. The increase in demand in 2017 has been 1.6 million. So going forward, there is a supply that is gradually drying up, a demand that is gradually increasing. So the fundamental balance in the oil market is moving in favor of suppliers. How long will this process go on? We don't know, because in the past there has been a buildup in oil reserve globally that was extraordinary. So these reserves are being depleted little by little. Once this process is concluded, we'll see a remarkable upswing in the oil price. It might come sometimes in mid-year in 2018, maybe a little later, but nobody talks anymore of falling oil price or $30 per barrel. These forecasts were completely off off reality, were completely unrealistic, have been discarded.
So in other way, actually, at least for the time being, that we'll see a better future for the oil prices actually around the world.
That's my expectation. That's the expectation of most traders. The view by professionals in the oil and other energy commodities is very bullish at the moment.
Well, we'd like to thank you very much actually for this short interview, and we wish you a very good evening and a happy new year, and let's hope that the prices will gradually go up and we'll have a better future for the oil prices globally actually. Once again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. It's been a pleasure and an honor. Happy New Year.
Wonderful. That was Fabio Scacciavillan, Chief Strategist at Oman Investment Fund, with us here at the studio. The government took a number of procedures in aspects related to revenues and expenditure with the aim to achieve sustainable finance. Activating the non-oil revenues is the #1 focus of the 2018 budget, and it includes the following procedures. 1. Amending income tax law. 2. Raising the efficiency of tax collection and activating monitoring. 3. Applying selective tax on some commodities. 4. Amending the fees of issuance of licenses of bringing expatriate manpower, non-Omanis. 5. Amending some services fees. 6. Amending regulations of exemptions from customs tax. 7. Amending regulations of allocating lands with their various types: commercial, touristic, industrial, and agricultural. 8. Amending fees of municipal services. The 2018 budget will also focus on rationalizing public expenditures so as to achieve the economic and social goals as follows: giving priority to the implementation of necessary projects, delaying the purchase and replacement of government cars and equipment, not to expand organizational structures of the ministries, expansion in the usage of e-transactions, enhancing the contribution of economic institutions owned by the government, and rationalizing the government supports and direct it towards the eligible categories, involving the private sector in the implementation and management of some projects, selling the government assets that cost a burden on the public treasury in terms of activation and maintenance, completing the procedures of issuing partnership law between the public and private sectors, obligation to the budget appropriations for the ministries and government units. The government, through these procedures, aims to control the financial status with hopes to achieve economic growth. 1.2 billion Omani Rials is the value of financial approvals and the budget of 2018 allocated for the development projects. The new budget includes investment expenses to establish economic projects as well as to complete and a number of other strategic projects. It is expected that the actual activation of Muscat International Airport will start this year, which is considered one of the vital strategic projects. The first stage of Al-Batina Coastal Road is also expected to be completed, including the compensations for the citizens affected by the road implementation works. Meanwhile, the work progress on Al-Batina Expressway, the Ministry of Transport and Communications continues the implementation of some dual road projects such as Bid-Sur as well as Adam Thamrit. In health sector, 3 hospitals will be established, which are Sultan Qaboos Hospital in Salalah, Suwaiq Hospital and Khasab Hospital through partnership with private sector. The current year will also witness the completion of infrastructure project in residential area in Liwa as establishment of housing units by the Minister of Housing continues. Some water networks projects will also be accomplished in various wilayas. In education sector, the government is working on completing internal and external scholarship for Omani students as some schools are being established. Meanwhile, in Duqm, a number of projects are started, including Duqm Refinery Oil Complex, factory for buses, Omani Chinese City, including a group of other projects. It's worth mentioning that the government companies are working on the implementation of various projects worth 3 billion Omani Rials. The 9th five-year development plan focuses on improving the private sector and strengthen its role in the economic activities. The Omani government has implemented a package of policies to uplift private sector contribution in the Sultanate total investments. Such policies include enhancing investments climate and work environment. The policies also include removing obstacles with regards to practicing investments in the Sultanate throughout issuing foreign investments law, partnership law between public and private sectors, along with bankruptcy law. The Omani government has allocated 10 million Omani Rials for e-government projects and enhancing quality of the rendered services and involving private sector in financing these projects. Beside these policies, the government exerted strenuous efforts in strengthening partnership between the public and private sectors through launching a number of initiatives like building and improving national competencies, in addition to an initiative of strengthening work environment and improving legislative framework of partnership project. Despite the economic and financial challenges due to the decline of international prices of oil, the Sultanate activated allocation program, which is considered one of the main policies of the Omani government in improving private sector. The idea of this program is to involve the private sector in owning, financing and managing economic activities in the Sultanate. You're watching the Sultanate of Oman television, and still to come in our news bulletin. Yes, countries around the world celebrate the new year 2018. Welcome back to the news from the Sultanate of Oman television. Discussing aspects of cooperation between the Sultanate and Kuwait in the legislative and regulatory fields and means of improving parliamentary work between legislative councils in various regional and international events topped discussions at the meeting between His Excellency Khalid bin Hilal al-Ma'wali, Chairman of the Shura Council, when he received His Excellency Fahad Hajar al-Mutairi, Ambassador of Kuwait accredited to the Sultanate. His Excellency, the Chairman of Shura Council, has received a written message from His Excellency Marzouk Al-Ghanim, Chairman of the National Assembly of Kuwait. More than 200 million Omani Rials is the value of economic movement in Buraimi Industrial Estate. The number of investors in the estate reached 325, working in various fields. A number of strategic projects will be established in the estate in the beginning of this year, such as the residential city for laborers, uplift efficiency of a number of services like sewage services, and launching e-portal where investors can collect all licenses and approvals. Enhancing efficiency and effectiveness, accelerating procedures without prejudice to environmental protections requirements revealed by the meeting of the Ministry of Environment and Climate Affairs with media men from various media institutions. The meeting discussed analyzing environmental, local and regional changes in addition to requirements of dealing with current conditions. The ministry followed the policy of continuous development in its performance and depend within these framework on follow-up best practices for future foreseeing. The ministry prepares to implement innovative environmental policies aiming to create culture of environment commitment, which will enable working with more incentives that refine work's environment and achieve financial savings for investors and private and governmental companies. The ministry clarified during its meeting with media people its keenness to develop services provided and facilitate procedures. Several weather and political skirmishes around the world did not keep people away from welcoming the new year 2018. Here is a report compiled and read by Suleiman Al-Buhri.
Las Vegas welcomed 2018 with fireworks, big-ticket musical acts, and unprecedented security in the wake of the deadliest mass shooting in U.S. modern history just 3 months ago. Law enforcement officers kept a close eye today on the estimated 330,000 people who traveled from all over the U.S. and beyond to pack in the Las Vegas Strip and downtown's Fairmount Street. Visitors took selfies and live-streamed the celebration amid temperatures in -4 degrees Celsius, much warmer than most of the U.S. With a firework display lighting up the night sky, Mexico City welcomed in 2018 More than 100,000 people gathered at Mexico City's emblematic Angle of Independence to enjoy a New Year's Eve party organized by the Mexico City government. The fireworks were followed by best wishes and spontaneous dancing. Thousands gathered in Rio de Janeiro to celebrate the New Year with a fireworks display at Copacabana Beach. More than 2 million people welcomed 2018 at Rio de Janeiro. 12 minutes of fireworks delighted onlookers, many of who traveled to Rio for the party. People in the capitals of Russia and France gathered to mark the New Year with fireworks displays and celebrations. Muscovites and visitors in the Russian capital celebrated at the riverbank, watching fireworks light up the skies above the Kremlin. Usually festooned with snow at New Year's Eve, the Russian capital was going through a long spell of intermittent rain and gray skies. Meanwhile, in Paris, thousands of revelers gathered on the Champs-Élysées to watch the fireworks display at the Arc de Triomphe. The celebrations took place under high security in France, which has been hit by a series of attacks in recent years. According to the French Interior Ministry, 100,000 police officers and soldiers and 40,000 rescuers have been deployed across the country, including 2,500 on the Champs-Élysées. Canada's capital, Ottawa, rang in 2018 with fireworks over Parliament Hill. The celebration was held in extremely frigid temperatures.
Of course, we wish each and everyone 2018 peaceful and prosperity around the world. This is the Sultanate of Oman Television. Before we end tonight's bulletin, here are the main points once again. His Majesty Sultan Al-Qaboos issues a royal decree ratifying the state's general budget for the fiscal year 2018. The total general expenditure of the Sultanate increases by 7%, amounting to 12.5 billion Omani Riyals. And Al-Buraimi Industrial Estate witnesses an active economic movement, and the value of investments exceeds 200 million Omani Riyals. With that, we do conclude this news bulletin for the first day of 2018. Thank you for joining us.